Corbin Carroll is in there with a triple.
And thank you to MLB Network for the highlight of Corbin Carroll's triple that took place in yesterday's game in the loss to the White Sox. However, the real deal begins tonight. Chase Field against the Houston Astros. And to fill us in on everything, it is indeed Jesse Friedman, Arizona Diamondbacks beat writer at PHNX Sports. You can follow him on Twitter or X at Jesse N. Friedman. Jesse, Jimmy B, Manuch, how are you today, pal?
I am doing great. How are you guys?
We're doing wonderful. How excited are you to go watch real, meaningful baseball tonight and what it means for not just the D-backs, but also the Astros?
It's a huge series, right? As you said, not just for the Diamondbacks, but for the Astros. You know, the Mariners won a big come from behind game over the Texas Rangers last night. So the Astros have a lot to play for. And, the Diamondbacks are in a very good position at this point. I think Fangraphs has their playoff odds at, 98% or something like that at this point. But this is a really important game for them too. If they're able to seal the deal tonight, that would allow them to kind of remaneuver their starting rotation going into the wild card round. You got Zach Gallen on the bump tonight. Merrill Kelly slated for tomorrow. But if the Diamondbacks were able to seal the deal now, they could flip that around. They could have Merrill Kelly ready to start game one and not have him start tomorrow. And then, Zach Gallen would line up to start game two in that wild card round. So, it's not a do or die game for the Diamondbacks necessarily, but it would go a long way, toward setting them up well in the postseason.
All right, Jesse, Jimmy and I had our abacus out. We had our slide rule out. We included a computer talking about the scenarios that if they do lose and it comes down to a tiebreaker, I believe, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that the D-backs have the tiebreaker over the Cubs. Do they have the tiebreaker over the Marlins? And what else would need to happen for them to keep them out if they lose all three?
Yeah, so the Diamondbacks do have the tiebreaker with the Cubs.
Okay.
They do not have the tiebreaker with the Marlins. So the Marlins the Marlins are definitely in a better position than Chicago at this point. But yeah, I mean, if you're the Diamondbacks, you're still in a really, really good position because you would still make the postseason if one of those teams overtook you, right? There's two spots still available here. What you can't have happen is have both of those teams overtake you.
Right.
And that's why the Diamondbacks are in such a good position, right? They have decent leads over both of those teams here with just a few days left in the season. And yeah, I mean, they would clinch a spot with a win in any of the three games over the Houston Astros this weekend. But, if enough things go their way outside of that, they would still have a decent chance to make the playoffs, even if they didn't win any of these three games. But yeah, I mean, as I said earlier, I think this is so important for them to wrap things up tonight if they can, one way or another, just so that they can, realign their starting rotation heading into the playoffs.
All right, so you got Gallen on the mound tonight then, and how do you expect them to pitch to the Astros? What would be the book for him to make it a successful evening?
The Astros are a good hitting team. There's no way around that. I don't know if there's necessarily any one approach. Zach Gallen is certainly a game, and he's going to do his homework, and he's going to come up with a game plan that is far more advanced than anything I could possibly describe. But yeah, I mean, this Astros team is, they have not had the season that they had a year ago. Obviously, they're the defending World Series champions, and they've come back and still been pretty good this year. I think for them, the offense has been pretty much equally potent as what we saw last season. What's really changed for them is on the pitching side, where they've had Christian Javier take a little bit of a step back. Hunter Brown has gotten a lot of innings for them in their rotation this year and has had some ups and downs. So I think there's a little more volatility on the pitching side, but yeah, for Zach Gallen facing that offense, he has his work cut out for him, to say the least.
Jesse, who are the guys? I mean, we look at Corbin Carroll and Christian Walker and Pham, et cetera, but who are the guys do you feel need to step up their game offensively to ensure that this all happens by the end of this weekend?
It seems like Lourdes Gurriel is often a bit of an X factor for the Diamondbacks. We saw, early in the season when this team was consistently scoring 5 or more runs a game, he was right in the middle of that. And, that's why he was named an all-star. He was really good in the first couple months of the season. And he's been better of late as well. Over the last month or so, Lourdes Gurriel has been one of the Diamondbacks' better hitters. I think another name that comes to mind is Christian Walker, who is one of the headliner names in this offense for sure. But he's had some struggles recently. He really very much came out of that in that series in Chicago. Got over 100 RBI, had a 6 RBI game in that series. So he's come out of that. But it always seems like when Christian Walker is doing his thing and hitting for power, he's one of the few guys in this lineup who really has that elite level power. I think that kind of sets the table for everyone else.
Jesse, when you talk to these ball players and you get a chance to talk about the turnaround, the flip after such a woeful start of the second half of the season, then it seems like the last, I'm going to say 2 to 3 weeks, they just kind of found themselves again. It seems like they kind of got their second win per se. When you talk to them man to man, anything in particular that helped them flip the script?
It really is remarkable how they've turned things around, right? I mean, after losing 3 out of 4 in that Mets series just a couple weeks ago, the Diamondbacks were in a pretty difficult position, and they've really found a way to turn things around. From what we've heard, it's always hard to know exactly what's going on inside that clubhouse, but all indications are that the Diamondbacks have had this sort of quiet confidence. That's the phrase we keep on hearing. A team that, even though there might be outsiders who don't necessarily think that, they were going to wind up where they are right now, they've sort of always had this internal belief that, this is where they belonged and this is where they were going to end up at the end of the season. It seems that sort of carried them into making that a reality.
We're having a great conversation with Jesse Friedman. We're talking Diamondbacks and Astros tonight. 3 games remaining in the regular season, Jesse. Is this maybe, and I know how reporters get, I've been there in your seat, and I know how I always get jacked up to go to a game, but is it maybe just a little extra special heading to the yard tonight?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, as a reporter, there's nothing better than good storylines and, a situation where a team can clinch the postseason, right? And I think if you're a Diamondbacks fan, you probably want to be at this game, right? Like there's a chance that the Diamondbacks could clinch a postseason berth, the first time that they've done that in 6 years in this game tonight. And I mean, I think any fan would absolutely want to be there, and I certainly expect it to be a pretty packed house out at Chase Field. So I mean, there's nothing better than this, right? There's nothing better than baseball that matters in late September. And from here, if the Diamondbacks are able to make it, there's of course nothing better than October baseball if the D-backs are able to get there.
Jesse, as the season winds down for you, as Jimmy mentioned, writing and covering this team all year long, and hopefully they go far in the playoffs. I've got to make in the wild card. For you, as you think back throughout the year, what's kind of the theme, or what was the mantra that you would write about with this ball club?
It seems like the Diamondbacks have just been really good at the little things for most of the year. I know there was maybe a few week stretch in July when the team was down where they, maybe there were a few more outs on the bases than they would have liked to see. But by and large, this is a Diamondbacks team that's sort of built on competence, right? They catch the ball better than other teams. They run the bases better than other teams. They don't necessarily have, a ton of power offensively. They've got 2 really good starting pitchers. After that, there's a lot of question marks. The bullpen has been up and down. But yeah, I think the Diamondbacks do a really good job of making the most of what they have, right? They've maximized, I think, the talent that they have in this organization. And that's what's led them to this place. I mean, if you look at run differentials, if you look at, where the Diamondbacks stack up in terms of pitching rankings and hitting rankings and so forth, in some ways, it doesn't seem like they would be a team that's in this position, right? Their rankings and those things don't necessarily scream playoff contender. And what this Diamondbacks team has done all year is just do a little bit more with what they have, than what I think a lot of people would have expected. And that's really what's allowed them to be in this position.
You mentioned the bullpen. We've been bemoaning the fact how well they've done the last couple of 2 to 3 weeks. What's been the switch there? Mechanics, coaching, forward scouting, all the above? Which one?
I think two players really stand out for me. Andrew Saalfrank and Ryan Thompson
1 minute.
came into this organization. Both were pitching in the minors as of the end of August, and they've come in here and in about 3 or 4 weeks here with this Diamondbacks team, they've made an impression. I believe they've given up a combined 1 earned run in more than 20 innings pitched. And they've really helped solidify the back end. When you have Ryan Thompson as your seventh inning guy or whatever that looks like, when you have Andrew Saalfrank as a weapon to try to get some key lefties, late in games. And then you add to that mix, you've also got Kevin Ginkel doing his thing at the back end. You've got Paul Sewald, who seems to have settled down a little bit here in the last couple weeks after a bit of a rough introduction to this Diamondbacks team. Yeah, it's amazing how when you just add 1 or 2 more guys to that mix at the back end, it really just helps everything else fall into place.
Jesse, enjoy the game tonight,
no kidding,
pal.
man.
We're envious, so enjoy, kid.
I appreciate it. Take care, guys.
There you go. Jesse Friedman, always at PHNX.com on tonight's big game, Astros and